red line for us is we start seeing a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around or being utilized. That would change my calculus.
We now know that chemical weapons have been used for almost a year by the Syrian regime. We've done nothing. So I think it's time that we act in a very serious way. If a no-fly zone is what they decided to do, then I'm sure our military has taken the right preparations for carrying out a successful operation, and I'll support that.
When I heard Ed Henry report earlier in the show that Obama would be discussing this with allies next week at the G8 summit, it was like Gregory Hicks watching Susan Rice on the Sunday talk shows. My jaw dropped. I mean, here's a president who's been saying for months, for years, that a red line is the use of chemical weapons. Finally, after allies have determined that it was used, after applying CSI standards, he gets his own report that, yes, it was used. That's announced today. So the red line is now officially crossed. You would think they would actually have considered what you do on the day the red line is crossed. You don't think it anew on the morning of the announcement. You've got a year and a half to work out the contingencies, the plans, and the choices. And Obama is saying, you know, well, I'll work it out. I'll talk to the allies in a week. In a week, Hezbollah is now amassing outside of Aleppo. Hezbollah joined the fight. The rebels are in distress. The leader of the rebels, the ones who is a non-Islamist, has appealed openly he needs the weapons. And Obama, talking about a mix of aid, he wants to increase it. What's he going to do? Add chicken to the tuna that we're giving them in the food aid? This is really astonishing. You say it's a red line, you announce it's happened, and you say, well, I'll talk about it with allies next week.
When I said that the use of chemical weapons would be a game changer, that wasn't a position unique to the United States, and it shouldn't have been a surprise. When I am making decisions about America's national security and the potential for taking additional action in response to chemical weapon use, I've got to make sure I've got the facts. That's what the American people would expect of our allies.
Game changer, you mean U.S. military action?
By game changer, I mean that we would have to rethink the range of options that are available to us.
I think what we need to happen is for Obama to make a decision. If he wants to stay out, he should say so. And then there'll be others, perhaps the French, who were the mandatory colonial power in Lebanon, Syria in the past, and had a sort of a historical connection with the Maronites in Lebanon, feel an obligation. Perhaps the French will intervene, or the British. There are others in the Gulf who are really very upset about the way Iran, Hezbollah, Syria have this axis now with the Russians behind them who are going to oppose them and dominate them. So there are allies, but everybody waits for the United States. And the Gulf War happened in 1990, and there was an invasion of the Kuwait. Nobody acted. But the minute America said we're going to act with allies or without, everybody else joined the coalition. So nothing happens until he says, but he has to say. And unless he does, I think it's going to be a Hamlet performance. And you know what happens at the end of Hamlet? Everybody dies.
So much breaking news. We wanted to get one more topic in with the panel, and that is the situation with the NSA leaker.
Like, we need to stop talking about the fact that he's a high school dropout or that he's in China. Why don't we talk about what the government's doing to spy on us?
Well, we're talking about him because he announced himself. He declared himself to the world in a weird spot, Hong Kong, perhaps which he speaks about as a paragon of human rights. Well, perhaps he doesn't know it's under the sovereignty of China, a repressive regime ever since 1997.
This has been a Sunfish production.